En esta edición de marzo, el mes de la mujer, conversamos con el doctor Zeno Franco sobre sus estudios en asuntos de la salud de los latinos en Milwaukee. También con Gigi Sánchez del Centro del Cáncer, Somos Latinas, un proyecto que presenta las historias de liderazgo de mujeres latinas en la historia de Wisconsin. En esta edición de marzo, el mes de la mujer, el doctor Zeno Franco estudia la relación entre la cultura de la comunidad y la salud, y nos habla de All of Us, un programa de investigación que empieza a explorar en forma más detallada que antes la conexión entre la genética, nuestras conductas relacionadas con la salud y el ambiente en el que vivimos.
Well, I've been working for the Medical College of Wisconsin for the past 15 years or so, really doing a lot of community engagement work across the city of Milwaukee. I am a Hispanic professor, and so a lot of the work that I do is really serving the Hispanic community here in Milwaukee and trying to elevate understanding really about health and how we can improve our health as we go through our days in life. And the culture, every culture actually does have an impact on how people perceive their ability to change their own health trajectory. Of course, I'm reflecting on my own family's experiences. My grandparents, mis abuelos, were born in Mexico. My grandmother was from Manzanillo, Colima. My father was also born in Manzanillo. My father, on the other hand, just passed this last January. And he passed from something called idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis. And the term idiopathic sounds complicated. All it means is we don't know what the cause was. We, as scientists and as healthcare professionals, we're not sure why he died. And the reality for the communities that we come from communities of color, is there are health disparities for our communities that we don't fully understand.
You are involved in a very important national program or project that is called All of Us. Can you tell us what is this about and what is looking to achieve?
We're trying to recruit 1 million people across the United States from every different background. And that means if the person is from a different community of color, if they're from the able community or the disabled community, if they're from various different backgrounds in terms of LGBT status, transgender, all of these differences in how we are in the world, they have implications for our health and our health care. There are subtle differences in our genetics that can impact how we take in medication and the side effects that we have. And right now we're really treating to sort of the average person. Oftentimes that's the sort of average middle-aged white man. And we haven't gotten enough genetic information from many other different groups. And we are unable right now to really tailor medication for those groups in the way that we want to. And that's really the future of healthcare, is precise medication so that we're minimizing side effects and we're getting exactly the targeted medication dose and the right medication for the right person. We're starting to return what are called whole genome sequences, and people who want to know what their health risks are from a genetics perspective. And I think something that's even more kind of everyday is we're starting to return what we call pharmacogenetic results, which means how do your genes impact the way that your body ingests medication and metabolizes medication. And that can differ from person to person. That information will be in the physician's hand as well. And I think that can really be transformative for people's healthcare. Really, the only requirement right now is that you're an adult. And we're asking people from every different background, every community, whether that's white, Black, Hispanic, Asian. One of the things for the Hispanic community in particular is I want to be very clear that the federal government is involved, and they've been very careful to think through that there's different immigration status even within one home. Social Security number is not required to participate in this study, and the information is protected. So you can't get this information if you're from law enforcement, for example. So it will have no implications for somebody's immigration status. If you're here in the United States, it's important for us to ensure that you have an opportunity to participate regardless of what your status is Regardless of what your background is, we're asking everyone, please participate.
Is there any information about how many Latinos have participated or joined to this database?
I don't have the national numbers, but I can tell you right now that for Milwaukee, we're sitting at about 530 people. It's about 7 or 8% of our overall sample size. It's about half of the percentage of Hispanics that are represented in Milwaukee.
March is the month of women. Have you a picture in that experience about Latino women?
One of the classic things for me is, my abuelita was the person who took care of the entire family, always. Preparing meals, making sure that we came home, making sure that the family's together. Oftentimes, Hispanic women and women as a whole put their own health last because they have so many pressures trying to make sure that the family is moving forward in this life. And so we see sometimes women ignore problems that they're having. There's more than one situation here at the Medical College where we have heard about a woman who clearly had the symptoms of cancer, but didn't come in for appropriate screening early enough. Focusing on what is the future of healthcare, women can set for themselves and for their family the expectation that health comes first.
There are these beliefs among Latinos that we do many wrong things with our diet, with our traditions. Can you talk about both, actually?
The food in the Hispanic culture is heavy, or it's the wrong type of food to be healthy. And sometimes I see people trying to adjust how we're eating. I mean, we even have programs. And the reality is, I like my tortillitas and I like to eat beans and all those things, right? Just like everybody else. I think actually the solution is often digging deeper into our own culture. And there are healthy foods, for example, within the culture. Maybe it's replacing and having frijoles negros instead of refried beans. But that's still part of the culture rather than saying we're gonna switch this out for something that's not really part of the culture. So part of that is just reaching deep inside ourselves and deep inside the stories within our families. The other part of Hispanic culture that we know is protective around health is that we are a very social group of people. And those social ties are incredibly important, both in terms of what we feel inside of ourselves when we connect with other people, but we're also there for people when they're struggling with their health, and maybe we're able to provide some additional support around that person. So I think there are incredible strengths within our culture around healthful behaviors, right? We have to think about all the transitions that have also happened for our families and how those transitions have impacted us and impacted our health. So I think the easiest thing is to go to the website. So the national website is very simply joinallofus.org. Si hablas español, it's simply joinallofus.es. We could not do this work. The Medical College of Wisconsin and the National Institutes of Health could not do this work without local partners that are working in our communities of color. We're working extremely closely with agencies like United Community Center, 16th Street, FQHC, the Federal Qualified Health Clinic that's serving a Hispanic community on the south side of Milwaukee, with UMOS, which is really a service to immigrants coming to the United States. And so for me, this program has also been an opportunity to not just talk about the past, but also talking with my children about what is it to be Hispanic, what is it to think about where we come from, and what are the genetic influences there that are going to inform their health and healthcare in the future as they move forward in life. And that's a very traditional worldview in some way, right? That we're not just thinking about one generation, but we're thinking about this really across time and across multiple generations as well.
Los exámenes médicos son medidas preventivas contra el cáncer y otras enfermedades y pueden salvar vidas. Griselda Gigi Sánchez se dedica a promover y crear conciencia de la importancia de asistir al médico regularmente. Ella con nosotros.
Soy originaria de México. Mis padres vinieron a vivir a este país a la edad cuando yo tenía unos 16 años. He estado viviendo aquí. Comencé a trabajar en un centro de cáncer directamente con la comunidad hispana latina que está pasando por cáncer. Durante ese tiempo, uno de mis hermanos fue diagnosticado con cáncer de sarcoma a la edad de 34 años. Al año de haber sido él diagnosticado, a mi mamá la diagnostican con cáncer de seno y teníamos en ese momento 2 familiares al mismo tiempo con un diagnóstico de cáncer.
¿Cuál es la iniciativa en la que estás trabajando en este momento?
Acabo de abrir una organización sin fines de lucro en memoria de mi hermano llamada Fe, Vida y Esperanza. Nos reunimos el último jueves de cada mes en la iglesia San Martini, que está ubicado en el 1500 sur de la César Chávez Drive aquí en Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Nos reunimos de 5:30 hasta 7:30, a veces nos duramos hasta las 8. La mayoría de nuestras personas del grupo de apoyo son sobrevivientes de cáncer de seno o están pasando por cáncer de seno.
Marzo es el mes de la mujer. En la experiencia que tú tienes, ¿ves tú alguna diferencia en cómo la mujer latina maneja el cáncer? Diferente que otros grupos, los niños, los jóvenes, los hombres?
Sí, hay mucha diferencia. El cáncer de seno es el segundo más diagnosticado en todo el estado de Wisconsin. Las mujeres hispanas, las mujeres latinas son diagnosticadas con cáncer de seno o de mama en etapas más avanzadas, ya cuando el cáncer está más propagado. El ejemplo de mi mamá es de que ella se estaba vistiendo una mañana, se puso presión en el seno y notó que le salió sangre. Si mi mamá en otras hubiera dicho, ¿sabes qué? Me rasguñé, me picó un zancudo, algo pasó y no hubiera hecho caso, entonces mi mamá hubiera sido diagnosticada con una etapa ya más avanzada en cuanto a cáncer de seno.
La mujer latina no tiene el nivel de incidencia del cáncer de otros grupos raciales como el grupo anglosajón. Sin embargo, más mujeres latinas mueren del cáncer por falta de dar seguimiento. ¿Es esto real en tu experiencia? ¿Es de lo que tú me estás hablando? ¿Es lo que tú has experimentado?
Es algo de lo que yo he experimentado. Sí, hay muchas barreras en cuanto se trata del cáncer en los latinos. Hay varias barreras o razones del por qué las mujeres hispanas son diagnosticadas en etapas más avanzadas comparándolas con las mujeres blancas. La barrera del idioma, no tener seguro médico, el estatus migratorio, no saber a dónde ir, no saber a qué edad tengo que hacerme mi mamografía, a qué edad tengo que hacerme mi colonoscopia. A veces también los recursos no están al alcance de las personas. Cuando estaba leyendo el reporte de por qué las mujeres hispanas son diagnosticadas en etapas más avanzadas en cuanto al cáncer de seno, es de que las mujeres hispanas se hacen su primera mamografía, la mamografía de rutina, y les encuentran algo y les dicen que tienen que llamar para regresar a hacerse una mamografía de diagnóstico porque hubo algo sospechoso. Y entonces en el momento de que se hizo esa mamografía de rutina, al momento que la mujer tomó el teléfono para hacer la siguiente cita, se notó que hubo un largo tiempo de espera entre el primer mamograma a la cita de seguimiento, y se encontró que porque las mujeres normalmente están ocupadas cuidando a sus esposos, a sus hijos, trabajando, y al último se cuidan ellas mismas. Una de las otras áreas en la que nos enfocamos en Fe, Vida y Esperanza con la organización sin fines de lucro, tenemos información de recursos. Acabamos de tener un evento, se les hizo un cambio de imagen, hicimos una pasarela rosa, pero no solamente eso, no solamente celebramos, sino que llevamos a estas guerreras, como yo les llamo, a la comunidad, para dejarles saber a la comunidad que el cáncer existe, que el cáncer pasa no solamente en los anglosajones, sino también en los hispanos. Y aparte de eso, también tuvimos un grupo de enfermeras que fueron y estaban haciendo exámenes clínicos de los senos y dando información y más que nada recursos de qué hacer, a dónde ir.
¿Hay algún número de teléfono donde la gente pueda comunicarse contigo?
Te voy a dar mi número de celular donde me puedes llamar, es el 414-388-9002. Me puedes llamar, me puedes mandar mensajes de texto. Comunidad hispana, yo soy hispana también, igual que ustedes. Por favor, no dejen su salud al último, porque normalmente los hispanos no nos cuidamos en cuanto a la salud. La salud creo que la dejamos abajo y ponemos todo arriba, especialmente nosotras, las mamás, las esposas. Tenemos que cuidarnos nosotros primero. Ve y hazte tu mamografía a tiempo, ve, hazte tu colonoscopía a tiempo, hazte los chequeos, hazte tus físicos, porque si nos enfermamos nosotras, si te enfermas, la casa se cae. Por favor, que se cuiden, cuídense y por favor pongan la salud a mero arriba de la lista de las cosas más importantes de tu vida.
El proyecto de Somos Latinas, We Are Latinas, fue creado para documentar las contribuciones de las latinas en Wisconsin en áreas de la educación, los derechos civiles y la mujer, abuso doméstico, reforma migratoria, representación política y paz y justicia. Es un privilegio para nosotros en Adelante presentarles esta historia.
Somos Latinas is a project which focuses on the state's unsung heroes, meaning our women over the age of 50. The Somos Latina Digital History Project was started in 2012 at the request of Linda Garcia Merchant from the National Oral History Project known as Chicanas por mi Raza.
You know, I was fortunate enough to serve on the Somos Latinas Advisory Committee. Tess had invited me to join the group, and I really was fascinated by this notion of collecting the stories of older Latina community activists, so I joined immediately.
Linda Garcia Merchant asked me to consider interviewing a woman, and I said, there's more than a woman in Wisconsin who's been a Latina activist. So for 4 years, from 2012 till June of 2015, my students in Chicano Studies did video interviews. And that's now online to the Wisconsin Historical Society. In June of 2015, I retired, and Eloise and I had already agreed that we would work on a book. And since the book was launched in May of 18, we've had requests for presentations and speaking engagements, universities, nonprofits, and small groups of women. And it's really been wonderful because we've been able to gather even more insight and stories as we meet other women across the state.
This program today and the series of programs that are going to follow over the next few years as stepping stones to help us get there, to show that this university is committed not just to Latinx students that we are recruiting to our campus, but to the larger Latinx community of Milwaukee and the state of Wisconsin.
The Wisconsin Historical Society has been a partner and a supporter since the very first day. And in fact, the videos produced are the first project they put online. That means that community, faculty, K-12 teachers can access the videos for free, use them in a learning environment.
Somewhere down the road, I think when most of the video interviews had been completed, that Tess and I were talking, and we said, you know, we really have to create greater awareness now that we've got these wonderful collection of video interviews. How do we do that? So we were doing some brainstorming, and finally we said, you know what, let's write a book.
Where we're here at Marquette, and I don't envision it slowing down for a bit. I'd say another year and a half of people wanting to hear more from our women in the book and the video series.
Marquette is at an interesting opportunity right now to really grow not only its Hispanic serving institution status, in other words, to grow our student population to 25% Latinx students, but also to grow our Latinx studies program, an opportunity for students to understand that their culture, their history, their memories are part of the larger stories we tell about Wisconsin and about the United States. The book Somos Latinas is a perfect encapsulation of that.
It took about 144 people between community and campus to produce the Digital History Project. And that meant we had over 70 students from my Chicanx, Latinx study courses from 2012 to 2015 who were engaged in producing the videos. And I'm tremendously proud of what they produced.
Then when we decided to do that, we felt that we needed to further explore what was community activism from the lens of the Latinas themselves. There are so many definitions of what community activism is, but we really needed to hear it from their own perspective of what that meant. We wanted to explore that further, and so the book tries to accomplish that.
The part that I would like to share with you today was actually when I was Maria Flores.
I have a few pieces of my life in the book. One piece in particular that I'm real proud of was my involvement in the union, the labor movement. I've always been pro-labor. My husband was in the steward and financial secretary of UAW 553.
How sometimes I wake up in the morning and I think about their stories and I say, you know what, they made a difference, and you know, I can do my part on this as well. So when I go to speak, because I'm more of an introvert than anything else, that, you know, it's like, I'm going to do this because there's a story that needs to be told, and I really want them to feel the inspiration that I feel. If I can tell the stories where I have a sense that they're being inspired, then I've done my job.
People didn't really understand this explosion, didn't understand where people were coming from, didn't understand their journey and their challenges. So I spent a lot of time in that role trying to educate government officials, school districts, etc., about what Latino immigrants were facing in coming to Wisconsin.
Latinx studies and Latinx history is American history, and that it's important for all of our students, whether they are of Latinx descent or otherwise, to understand that this history is part of the history they need to understand who they are as part of the communities they're a part of, and to understand the neighbors that call these places home as well. And most importantly, understand that it's their obligation to take that work outside of the classroom and into the broader Marquette community.
In looking at why, and why I think that's as important is really about letting other people know, letting the community know who we are, what our value is as Latinas, and that we have that value.
It was important for us to be able to elect an Hispanic candidate, and there was an opportunity presented after the 1990 census.
In a total, we have 43 women profiled through the Digital History Project. And in addition, we were able to collect archives for some of the women.
And that is, for Tess and myself, one of the reasons why we wrote the book, because we had our own personal experiences in the Milwaukee community and realizing that we had changed things up. And so it continues to be the case, but women still have to find the path for leadership and create that path, because it's not always created for us. So that was really one reason for me to be involved in this effort.
It's wonderful that the audience now is able to point to specific women in our communities. And I've been very clear from the beginning that Somos Latinas is the starting point of the important recovery and documentation of Latinx history in this state.
And so we're really proud of everyone's effort. Tess and I are in our latter phase of life as well, and so we rightfully ended the book with saying, hacia adelante, so onward, forward, and we really see others, you know, continuing to take on the good work of collecting and archiving the stories of women.
I think it's almost a function of good fortune that Linda approached me from the national project, but also a function of aging, that I have come to appreciate the men and women around me have done on behalf of our communities. And I feel honored, and so I see that in some way we open a channel for these voices that have been speaking for many years, decades, about things that need to be corrected. And they've achieved great things. So the feeling is, the audience now knows who they are.
Para saber más sobre lo que ocurre en la comunidad, los invitamos a que visiten nuestras historias en nuestro sitio del internet, Extras. Y con un hasta pronto nos despedimos, invitándolos a que nos dejen saber sus comentarios por el teléfono 414-297-7544 o a que visiten nuestro sitio del internet en milwaukeepbs.org y en las redes sociales. Soy Patricia Gómez, deseándoles paz y bendiciones.